was a discussion with Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel regarding appeasement, and specifically negotiating. Why do you say it like that? Negotiating with terrorists. Roll it.
Well, first of all, we didn't negotiate with terrorists. As I said and explained it before, Sergeant Bergdahl is a prisoner of war. That's a normal process in getting your prisoners back. That's first. Second, as to your bigger question, we are dealing with terrorism and hostage taking all the time, everywhere. I think America's record is pretty clear on going after terrorists, especially those who take hostages. And I don't think what we did in getting our prisoner of war released in any way would somehow encourage terrorists to take our American servicemen prisoner or hostage.
I don't know if it's cognitive dissonance or I don't know. I can't explain that. It doesn't make sense to me. I asked the Colonel last night, Colonel Gordon Kakulu, about that. I will post that interview as stated during the next break because the Colonel also responded to that directly. Someone who I have been waiting to play that for, as well as a number of clips and ask about, because he has been at the heart, along with Pamela Geller, regarding the Bo Bergdahl release, is the director of Jihad Watch and author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, The Truth About Muhammad and The Politically Incorrect Guide to Islam. And I am grateful to this man for his work because he has actually been able to teach a guy like Crane Durham about Islam. How about that? He joins us now. Robert Spencer, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great to be back with you. Robert, I number of things I want to get to, but in understanding Susan Rice in 2008, who was the National Security Advisor is currently, obviously, she didn't have to be confirmed by the Senate, so she got by there. In 2008, she spoke to David Schuster on Morning Joe, and Schuster was he was subbing for Joe Scarborough at the time. Not that it matters if he'll say, Morning Joe, why is it? Okay, that's why. And this was in response to President Bush's Knesset speech regarding appeasement, and which took place May 16th, 2008, Thursday. This is Friday, May 17th. Here is the then spokesperson on national security affairs for candidate Obama. Listen to the question and as well as the short, very direct answer. It's cut number 4. Roll it.
Forward on that very point. Some people would suggest there's a fine line between talking with somebody and dealing with somebody. So let's try to pin down your campaign here. Given that Hamas is a powerful force in the Palestinian territories, none of us like it, at least nobody here. What sort of interaction, if at all, would an Obama administration have? Would there be any talks? Would there be no talks at any level? Spell it out for us.
No talks at any level.
So I realize this applies to now 2 stories and 2 ways of going. First, with Bo Bergdahl. Did we, Secretary Hagel says we did not, did we negotiate with terrorists in the Bo Bergdahl swap for the 5 killers?
How could we not have, Crane? I mean, it appalls me when I see Hagel say, no, we didn't negotiate with terrorists. He's either just baldly lying or he doesn't believe the Taliban are terrorists. But there's no neutral ground. There's no other alternative. We were obviously dealing with the people who held Bo Bergdahl to get him back. And that was actually not the Taliban per se, but the Haqqani Network, which is another jihad group in Afghanistan that's closely allied with the Taliban. And they certainly are terrorists themselves. And so were we negotiating with terrorists? Yes. How could we not have in order to make this deal?
What does this mean? How is this interpreted by jihadists? Because I'm looking at it, I went back and reread the reports on Osama bin Laden's letter in 1996, where he articulates a number of things, but strong horse, weak horse. Tell me, What is the paradigm? What is the paradigm of the jihadists? How they look at things, and how does that differ from the way we in the West, with a foundation based on a Judeo-Christian foundation, look at things and interpret these types of moves?
Well, you're absolutely right to mention Osama bin Laden talking about the strong horse and the weak horse. That's exactly it. That they see any sign of a gesture of goodwill, conciliation, etc., as a sign of weakness and something to be exploited, not, as we interpret it, as something to be returned in kind and as a sign of the goodwill of the other side. They don't see, oh, the Americans have goodwill toward us and they gave us these 5 jihadis back, and so we must do something equally generous to them. That's just not in the lexicon of the Islamic supremacist mindset that the Taliban and their allies hold to. And so they see that Barack Obama gives them 5 senior Taliban commanders, the close associate of Osama bin Laden among them. And he gives them to the Taliban for a traitor and deserter, as increasingly the evidence shows that that's what Bergdahl is. And they see this man's a fool. This man is somebody who is easily to be taken advantage of, and we should press forward with more demands and more aggression in order to get the most out of him that we possibly can.
In that understanding, Robert, I want to play this for you again because you spoke directly to this the other day, went to Jihad Watch, jihadwatch.org, and this goes to what we were told and what has happened. And yes, it's been 6 years, but we now have a complete turnaround, and the person who was telling us, or telling about Bergdahl, as well as advancing policies for the administration, was then speaking for candidate Obama. And this is in regard to, as stated, the Bush speech. But specifically, the question is about Hamas. And it's cut number 4, pardon me. Roll it.
Forward on that very point. Some people would suggest there's a fine line between talking with somebody and dealing with somebody. So let's try to pin down your campaign here. Given that Hamas is a powerful force in the Palestinian territories, none of us like it, at least nobody here. What sort of interaction, if at all, would an Obama administration have? Would there be any talks? Would there be no talks at any level? Spell it out for us.
No talks at any level.
I realize I've played it twice, but I want to make this point. What has changed, Robert? What's changed with them?
I
Go
have
ahead.
a news item from today from BuzzFeed,
Yes.
and the headline is this: the U.S. has been speaking to Hamas through back channels for more than 6 months.
Wow.
What has changed? I think that they were never honest about that. I think that they knew that if they went to the American people in 2008 and said, we're going to talk to Hamas, we're going to talk to the Taliban, we're going to aid the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, that they would have been resoundingly defeated. And so they denied it all. But now what they really are all about is abundantly clear.
Okay. Now, if they're going to change the position there and do things in secret, they seemingly have done that with Iran, as you mentioned, and the Muslim Brotherhood overtly. What does that mean about their view of national security? And if you could extrapolate what their view yields in light of the fact that I realize a lot of people may have forgotten 2001, 9/11, but in my mind, jihadists haven't gotten moderate from there. So you can please disabuse me of that notion if I'm missing something here. Talking Obama's worldview. Yeah, go ahead, please.
It seems to me, Crane, that it's totally fantasy-based, that what we have is a fantasy-based administration. Barack Obama says absolutely the 5 free jihadis pose a threat to the United States. And then in practically the same breath, he says, I wouldn't have done this if I thought it endangered national security. Well, okay, how many dead Americans do we have to have in Afghanistan before it's enough national security in danger for him not to do this? I mean, it's complete. What I mean is that it seems to me that the Obama administration's policies are based on total unreality. It's not possible for him to affirm both those things and for them both to be true. And yet he did affirm them. Either he's endangering national security by letting go these guys who are a threat to the United States, or they're not a threat to the United States, and thus he's not endangering national security by letting them go. But what he did was let them go and then affirm that they are a threat to national security, and then deny that he was endangering national security. This is a madman's posture.
And what are the consequences for this? Because we have
committed
history.
Troops to Afghanistan through to 2016. For what purpose? Who knows? Hamid Karzai is increasingly hostile. His regime is a Sharia regime as much as the Taliban's was. There is just no earthly benefit for our being in Afghanistan at this moment, and yet he's committed us there through 2016. And so these 5 top seasoned, battle-hardened commanders are going to go back, and they're going to kill American troops there. And there are more Americans who are going to die because of these 5 men who've been released.
What does it do in the greater context with, be it Sunni, Shia, jihadists, in their mind of what they've done on the 2 fronts, Iraq and Afghanistan, in the war on Islamofascism? And feel free to change the name or however you want to characterize it, please.
Well, the Islamic jihadists call it an Islamic jihad, and so do I. And the thing is that they believe that this is yet another victory. Mullah Omar said that the freeing of the prisoners was a great victory. He is, of course, the head of the Taliban. And they believe that they have won or are on the verge of winning in Iraq and Afghanistan. In Iraq, you have a weak government with a Shiite leader there that we installed who is essentially a client of Iran. And so Iranian influence has increased exponentially. Meanwhile, the Sunni jihadis are not willing to see Iraq get away from them, and so they're fighting the Shiites fiercely in Iraq. But neither side is going to be a friend or ally of the United States in any reliable way, whoever wins, if either of them prevail ultimately over the other, or if it just roils in this ongoing civil war forever. And meanwhile, in Afghanistan, both sides are hostile to the United States. Karzai, with increasing and open contempt and ingratitude for everything that's been done for him by the United States, including bags of unmarked and untraceable cash from the CIA delivered regularly to his office. And even after it was revealed that they were there, they still kept coming. And yet he thumbs his nose at the United States, threatens to join the Taliban, says that it's terrible that the U.S. is carrying out these drone strikes and so on. So what are we fighting for, in the words of Country Joe and the Fish? It's just not anything. There's no benefit for us there. And yet Barack Obama continues to have us there. You know, you would almost think that Barack Obama became president with the goal of drastically weakening and dividing America, because that's certainly what he's succeeded at most spectacularly.
What is the impact in the sense of what you've just described of the weakening of America? A lot of people have said, I'm not one of them. I'm a neocon endgamer, somewhere between the neocons and Jed Babin endgamer, and with your background and knowledge of the enemy, which you've been so wonderful to educate us on and understanding that. But here's my question. What is the result? Because some people say we can just back out of the world and we don't have to worry about this. They don't want to mess with us.
No, they want to mess with us. See, that's why I part company with the Ron Paul crowd. Ron Paul has said that if we just stop bothering them, they'll stop bothering us. They're just fighting a defensive war to defend their homeland. That shows an astonishing naivete and failure to grasp the reality of Islamic Jihad. They will keep coming, even if we're not there. And we have to defend ourselves against them and do whatever is necessary to do that. But that doesn't mean these ridiculous and just ongoing open sores of this foreign intervention that isn't even doing anything effective because of the impossible rules of engagement to fight the jihadis in Afghanistan has done nothing to impede their activities and is not helping to defend the United States in any way. That's ridiculous. If we were really fighting the jihad, fighting against the jihadis, that might be another thing altogether.
Robert Spencer, our guest director of Jihad Watch. Final question. If I see the fact that Taliban sanctuary, obviously, and was created originally by the ISA of Pakistan, and recognize the nuclear abilities of Iran, both being able to launch through the North Korean technology as well as the nuclear technology. I'm thinking that we thought 9/11 was bad. I'm very concerned that we're going to have something much greater than 9/11. Tell me, is that hysterical thinking? Or if I line up history of what we've just talked about and realize what the weapon developments are, is that something that you see?
Of course, Crane. The problem is that the denial and the fecklessness and the obfuscation is so thick now that, of course, the jihadis are going to take advantage of it. You know, I have written a book, Arab Winter Comes to America, about this denial and about how the Obama administration scrubbed all counter-terror training materials of any mention of Islam and jihad in connection with terrorism, and fired counter-terror trainers who spoke about Islam, including me. And it's not as if the jihadis haven't noticed this, that our FBI and intelligence community are now completely unequipped to understand the motives and goals of the enemy, and they're going to take advantage of that. That's 100% certainty.
Robert Spencer. It is. Folks are sitting there going, we just want to hear more Robert Spencer. You can do that, jihadwatch.org. And, of course, you can check out his latest book, Arab Winter Comes to America, the truth about the war we're in. And, Robert, look forward to having you back on, and maybe we'll just talk about the book. Because
thanks, Crane. Call me anytime. I'm always happy to be on.
Thank you, sir. Great to be with
Thank you.
Take care. All right. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. You say, but we've got Seton Motley in the bullpen, so all is well. He's next.